Christine. 2021 is wrapping up. It's that time of year again. So this is going to be my favorite books that I read in the year 2021. I have 9 new favorites to add to my list this year. Let's get right into it. I'm going to start with my one honorable mention, and that is John Green's The Anthropocene Review. I didn't know if I wanted to read it because it's nonfiction, but I knew I wanted to read it because John Green wrote it, and I love everything he writes. And it was excellent. It moved me. I cried. I laughed. I learned. I think about it a lot. It is a collection of essays on all different random topics having to do with humanity. Plus, look how pretty. Coming in at 9 this year is one that's a little weird to be on my list, but it would be weirder not to have it. My new novel that came out June 1st, Better Together. This is a quarter-life crisis book. It's like finding yourself after high school or after college when you step into the adult world and you trip and fall on your face and you're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do in here? That is what Better Together is about. It's also about dealing with tough family dynamics, sisterhood, romance, trust issues, all sorts of shit, but with a lot of comedy mixed in. If you read it already, I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't yet, the link is in the description if you want to give it a go. Gift it to another reader for Christmas. Thank you so much to everyone who's messaged me about it this year, who's picked it up this year. Like, it's meant the world to me. I have 2 books out in the wild now. It's just batshit. 8 on the list this year is Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yu. I was not expecting this book to hit me as hard as it did. One of those stories I picked up at exactly the time that I needed a story like this. It's about a young woman whose parents just recently got divorced. All her life, she's loved love stories. She loves romance novels. This has changed her whole perspective on love in general, and she stopped believing in it because everything always is going to fall apart in the end. And that's devastating. I went through a long-winded breakup this year, and I did not realize how much it had affected my optimistic, glowing view of love, and I just went through it reading this. It's a much more intense story than it would appear to be from the cover. It's really, really beautiful, and it's gonna stick with me for a very long time. Coming in at 7, The Other Merlin by Robin Schneider. I have a thing for a dude in a library or a dude whose room is a library, and that is the love interest in The Other Merlin. Not that everything else isn't great about it, but like Arthur, who will become King Arthur, is my absolute fave. I am not one prone to King Arthur-esque things at all. I'm not drawn to them. I've never watched Merlin before. The lead character is a female badass wizard. It has a very Throne of Glass tone in that the characters are all amazing and you fall in love with them, and all their relationships with each other are so layered and interesting, and you want to be friends with all of them. And then there's the she's the man aspect where Emery, the wizard, who is now going to work for the king, wasn't exactly hired. They sent for her brother, her twin brother, and he gets in some trouble, so he can't go to meet the king the day he's supposed to. So Emery's like, fine, I'm gonna take his place because I would love to be the king's wizard. The cover does not do this story justice. For me, this cover gives me cheesy feels, but like the book is excellent. It's hilarious. It's gonna be a trilogy. I'm so excited. Coming in at 6 is The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. I had such an amazing time reading this book. I just had all the butterflies, all the wanting for this app to be real. The book revolves around this dating app that maps out your compatibility scientifically through markers in your DNA, and it gives you a percentage of compatibility, and our lead character gets a diamond match, which is unheard of. She and this guy she's been matched with kind of be on the face of this app, and there's all this pressure on their relationship. I loved it. Act 5, The Sky Blues by Robbie Couch. This is one of those books that gives you all the giddy, excited, sweet, romantic, happy feels. I loved all of the characters deeply. It was adorable and earnest and just a treat to read. And if you need that right now and you haven't read The Sky Blues, you should really pick it up. It's about a gay boy in high school who's always kind of been reserved about who he is, but for his senior year, he's like, fuck it, I am going to ask the boy that I have a crush on to prom. To hell what people think, I'm going all out. It's wonderful. Okay, 4-3 3, 2, and 1 are all like my favorites. Like I had the best time reading these. And it was really hard to put them in any sort of order. I did eventually land on an order, but I keep mixing up 3 and 4 because I'm like, oh, I don't know which one I liked better. They're very different books. They gave me different emotions and different feelings. Act 4 is none other than Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Oh my god, the amount of feelings I have for this book. I'm so attached to it. It feels like it became part of me, this story. I absorbed it because I loved it so much. This is by far my favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid novel that I have read. I've read Evelyn Hugo, and I've read Daisy Jones and the Six, and now Malibu Rising, and this was my everything. If you're a big fan of This Is Us, I think you're really gonna love the way that the story is structured. It's a sibling story, it's about family, it's about love. There's romance in it as well, but like the overarching story is about a family. It takes place in Malibu in the 80s. There's these 4 siblings. It's just so beautiful. I did the audiobook. I read this while I was in New Jersey over the summer, and every time I got ready in the morning or I went to Starbucks, I had this on and my emotions would just flip onto overdrive. I'd be like, la-da-da-da-da, Malibu Rising. Oh my god! I had no idea what this was about going in, and I think that this is really like a hard book to kind of explain the intricate plots of without spoiling some of the journey for you. It's all about the journey. The audiobook narrator is the same audiobook narrator who did Addie LaRue, which is also phenomenal. Like, she is phenomenal. I'm gonna keep her on my list of audiobook narrators to look out for. I almost made this 1, and then I almost made this 2 and 3. It's so good, and I'm trying to gauge, I don't know what I'm gauging on, like this feeling in me. There's so little difference in how much I love these top 4 books. At 3 this year is The Hail Mary Project by Andy Weir. If you've been here for a while, you know I'm a huge fan of The Martian. Not like the movie, the book first, and then the movie. I love the movie too. I love The Martian. Andy Weir is so good at writing an endearing dude alone in space. I love all the science stuff. The Ravenclaw really comes out in me. I don't want to say anything else. There is an apocalyptic science space thing happening to Earth. Project Hail Mary is the Hail Mary attempt to save Earth from this ultimate destruction. They send out this crew. Our lead character is one of the guys on that crew. He ends up having to science really hard to stay alive and try to solve this problem so that Earth stays alive. And the audiobook is so good. Like, I could not wait every day to turn it on. I could not wait to like go on a long walk with a dog so I could listen to the Hail Mary Project. I was addicted to it, and it's not often that I get to read a book like this, or that I read a book like this. I'm not really in the sci-fi genre much. I like this really grounded sci-fi. I mean, it feels real to me. it feels so real, and that's part of the magic of the story. Like, I can imagine this actually happening and totally buy into it. I laughed so much. It's full of so much heart. Loved it. I highly recommend going into it without knowing any more than that. You're with our lead character just discovering things one by one, and each time you discover something is so thrilling. It's that excitement of science, like that excitement of discovering a new thing, throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks, and I love that. Especially when your lead character has a terrific, endearing voice that you love listening to. I did not know this was coming out, so it was one of those times where I just like went on Audible, and it was on the front page of my shop, and I was like, no shit! Andy Weir's a new book? And I just immediately downloaded the audiobook and started listening to it. I still think about it all the time. Coming in at 2 is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I mean, if you've been here for a while, you know I'm obsessed with most of Sarah J. Maas's books. I absolutely adore A Court of Silver Flames. I couldn't begin to fathom before I read it how many emotions this book would draw out of my soul. I couldn't begin to fathom before I read it how in depth the rated R sex scenes go in this book. It is definitely like the most romance book in terms of sex scenes that I've ever read before. I mean, it did nothing to deter from the amazing character journeys we witnessed through this novel and the amazing bonds those characters form. It's just a beautiful ride. I have a book talk for it. I went on and on and on, and I think it's tied for my favorite Sarah J. Maas novel. We've got Queen of Shadows, The Court of Mist and Fury, Crescent City, and The Court of Silver Flames. Okay, yes, that's 4 books. There are a lot of books. She has 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 books. So 4 of those are my favorites, and this is one of them. It's so good, and if you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend it. And if you need to be convinced some more, you can watch the beginning of this book talk where I convince you to read it because it's so, so great. I love it! And finally, number 1 on my 2021 list. You might have guessed it. Number 1 is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. It's hard to wrap my words around how much this book moved me and imprinted on my soul in so many different ways. If you are a creative human being, if you are a nostalgic human being, if you're a human being who loves romance stories, if you're a human being with feelings, I feel like you will love The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. It's another book, like most books that I recommend, that it's really nice to just go in with no expectations about what it's about. I really think you should not read what it's about. I read the synopsis like when I was halfway through the book and I was like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't read that beforehand because it was so beautiful to go into it with that blank slate and just go on this journey and find that out for myself. That's how I feel about most things. I fucking hate synopsises. Sorry, I don't need to go on a rant about my hate for synopsises. Like, I didn't like synopsises on my own books. I'm like, I don't want anything on here because it ruins it. I really don't like the synopsis on Better Together. Like, I'd rather you not read it at all. Don't look at anything. Back to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. It's absolutely beautiful in every way. The writing is masterful. There are so many sentences just like hit me in the chest. I had to go write them down after. When I listened to the audiobook, which like I said, same narrator as Malibu Rising, perfection. Her sentences would just pin me to the wall with their perfection. V.E. Schwab is a word wizard, a sentence wizard, an imagery wizard, and it doesn't bog down the story, which happens a lot when the books have beautiful writing. Sometimes you lose the story and you lose the pacing, and that's not at all the case. Like, you're so with the characters and you're so connected to their emotions. I don't know why my head is like comparing it to Fleabag, but it's on that level of writing, and it's not like a comedy. There is comedy in it. There's comedy in every great story. There's a lot of tragedy in here as well. Like, it balances each other out, and there's a lot of romance and just so many beautiful, thought-provoking moments and relationships. I can't recommend it enough. I know it's like blown up, it's everywhere. Maybe you guys aren't in the book bubble like I am and it hasn't reached you yet. Read it. Pick it up. It's so, so wonderful. Yeah, I can't wait to read Victoria's next thing. You will not be sorry. I read this at the very end of last year, so it missed my video. So it's been a whole year since I read this, and it still is with me all the time. I have started rereading the audiobook before bed, like I'll put it on to fall asleep, but I don't want to fall asleep to it because it's so wonderful that I'm like, I don't want to miss this. I need to read it with my eyes because while the audiobook is great, like, I want to cement the sentences in my brain, and since I'm a visual learner, I need to read it with my eyes for that to happen. And those are the books that I've added to my favorites list from the collection I read in 2021. Before I let you go, I'm going to do some quick housekeeping. I already talked about Better Together. I had another book come out this year, the paperback version of Again But Better, which has a bonus chapter and a beautiful, pretty pink cover. I am on TikTok now at XTeenMay. I'm also on Instagram at XTeenMay and Twitter at XTeenMay, and if you're not following me in at least one of those platforms, I'd really appreciate it if you did so, because YouTube doesn't always send out videos and I post out links and updates on those different platforms. I'd love to hear what your 2021 reading favorites were in the comments below. I'm Christine. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye!